Well, once this fires up, then we'll start talking. I want to go over a couple things with you, show you where there's been some questions and concerns about the domain test. What are they, and how do they really conjoin with test out? And I'll show you how to get and understand this information. I highly encourage you to go get your free educator resources, especially under the instructor's tools. Okay? Once you get there, you can go to the Lab Sim lesson plan. It's going to open up a page where you can go down here and you can look at all sorts of different type of lesson plans for every type of test or program that Test Out uses and has done. Okay? So whether you want to go do your Security Plus test on your own or whatever, you can look in here and see what they're going to cover.
You said that was under which tab?
It's going to be under Educator Resources, Instructor Tools. And then I clicked on Lesson Plans. And right here, you see where you have the LX0101. Okay? I'm going to open it up in PDF so you can see it. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And then I'm going to scroll down to page 142. All right. And it's going to be Appendix B, Linux Plus powered by the LPI. All right. What we're talking about by domains, this domain of system architecture, we have a domain test that will test you only on everything that's covered in this domain. Now, LPI created these domains, so you have 4 domains to start with. You have 101, 102, which is Linux installation and package management. 103, the GNU and or the GNU and the Unix basic commands. It goes over all the commands that you've used. And then finally, 104, which is devices, Linux file systems, and the file hierarchy standard. Now, when you get to 105, notice this is the LX102 exam domains. So everything below this you can ignore for this class. What it's saying is, from page 151, everything you see in here, you will see on your Linux Plus test. So, what they did to make it easier for you is they said, the system architecture. If I want to know where to learn this information about the system architecture, I can go to Module 8 in Test Out, and it will tell me everything I need to know about this specific information. Does that make sense? That would match up with the 101.1 subdomain of the Linux Plus test. To boot the system, Module 3.1 and 3.3 is the 101.2. Does that make sense now? Y'all see where? And this gives you a high 30,000 foot view of the information that you need to get covered or to know to pass that part of the certification exam. Does that make sense now? So when I said a domain test, everything that's in this 101, which are just these 3 things, so basically if you go over Module 8 and Module 3, because here's 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, and here's 3.1 and 3.3, you go over these 3 areas, you should understand everything that's in the system architecture domain. That's where all the information for system architecture is located, is in Module 3 and Module 8. Okay? So that when you go to take that first domain test, Domain 1, System Architecture, it's only going to cover the information that's in Module 3 and Module 8. That's it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yes, Evan?
So that means that's how the Linux Plus examination is broken down.
Exactly.
Okay.
This just tells you where in Test Out that information is covered. This is exactly what you have to know to pass that section or that module, or I should say that domain of that test. Linux Plus, the 101 test has 4 domains. That's it. That's why you're tested on those 4 domains. The reason I'm testing you on those 4 domains is I want you to go and take it only one time. So you can see how much information you've learned about that domain. And then, oh, well, I got an 89 on that. Okay, well, is 89 passing? Should be, because you only have to score 700 out of 900 on this test, which would be about 75 to 80%. Okay? Then look at domain 2. I got a 40 on that one. Well, what does that tell me? I need to go focus more on learning on that domain itself. So once you get complete 95s, 100s without memorizing the questions, take the questions, read and print them out like you've done, read the reasoning for that question and how it's worded and why it's worded and what the answers are and why they're not. Once you understand those concepts, you can ace every test on here. That's great. But you will have understood the concepts to pass the test.
So they're just like the quizzes. I can go in there and print all the
Exactly.
questions and study them.
Exactly.
And keep them as continuity.
That is correct. Yes.
So when it says on here domain, say 3, then that would be
That would be the 103.
300s.
Now it would be 103.
Oh, 103.
GNU and Unix commands. So you're going to learn that in Module 1. Have a little bit of blurb on Module 10. Module 1 and 7. A little bit of 9. You see where it's coming from now?
So when and where do we take these domain tests?
Okay. They're on test out, they're at the very bottom. On that left-hand column where all those domain and stuff is listed, down at the very bottom it says domain tests and practice security or practice Linux Plus exams. Those are what I want you to do. What I want you to do is I want you to take each one of those 4 domains, do them separately, okay? So that you can see what domain you're strong in and which ones you're not. Then when you take the Linux Plus practice exam, it's going to use questions from all 4 of those domains. So that will help you better identify what domain you need help with, and then you take it, and you can see is when you're doing them all together, what your strong points are and what you're not. So I'm trying to help develop a mentality so to gear you towards those certification type exams, because that's exactly how it's going to do. Start with the individual domain and the subdomain. Learn that as much as possible. Take that domain test. Find out how well you know about that domain. Once you pass that domain and you're rocking and rolling, go to the next domain. Do it again. Get through those 4 domains. Then go take your Linux practice certification exam. Now, once you get that done, here's the cool trick. And you finish the second half, the other domains from 5 to 11. When you finish those, that test out has a voucher up there for you to take their Linux Plus certification exam. If you consistently made 90s and higher on these tests without just memorizing the questions, but understanding why the questions are the way they are, you should be able to pass that test. If you pass that Linux Plus test voucher that they have, you'll get a certificate in the mail from them saying you know your Linux stuff. And it's a guarantee, if you pass their test, you will pass the Linux Plus test.
Is there a certain date you want us to do these by?
The domain test?
Yeah.
They're put in the system.
Oh, okay.
Check D2L. It'll tell you what dates they're due.
You can take them as many times as you want.
Yes, you can take them as many times as you want.
Just like the quiz.
Exactly. All right? So the more and more you take it, the better off you're going to be. All right? Any questions on that? That's where the domains are coming into play in the domain test. Did that clear up any confusion in the air?
Yep.
Like I said, I just want to make sure that you have that ability and understand the scope of what you need to do. And it's going to be the exact same thing if you have me for network administration, and the exact same thing you're going to have for network security as long as we're using test out. Because I want to prepare you to be able to understand how to study for the certification test. Because you pass the certification test, you have the knowledge.
Can you print out the rest of the modules? And I know you get with the study guides. I know you give us that. Are we able to go in there and print the rest out?
Yeah, you can go in there and highlight those texts and do it. Any questions before I cover our lecture? All right. We're going to talk about user interfaces and desktops. All right. We have different types of user interfaces and desktops. First, we have graphical programs called X clients. Why the term X clients? Anyone know? Because the GUI is called X Windows. All right. You have the desktop environment, which is your GDEs, your gnomes, or KDEs and your gnomes. GDE, what am I talking about? And then you have window managers. Those are your session window managers. You have X Windows, which is your GUI environment. You have video hardware, okay? These are the components that form your GUI. What is X Windows? Well, that's the core component of your GUI. That's your basis. That is what you see. It's a WYSIWYG. It's what you see, what you get. It provides the ability to draw on the screen graphical images in a Windows style. Okay, that's really all it means. Remember, everything in Linux is a terminal, right? You have a graphical terminal, which is your GUI. We call it X Windows. And X Client is a program that tells X Windows how to draw certain objects. Now, I've always laughed at this. X-Free86. Where does that sound familiar from? Windows. Free86, right? It's just the OSS version of X Windows. That's all it is. It was based on the x86 or the 32-bit platform. Y'all get it? X-Free86? Okay. Windows managers in desktop environments. What is a window manager? Well, that gives you that ooey gooey feeling, right? Hey, y'all actually laughed. That was funny. It gives you the vibe, the essential Windows components, all right? The desktop environment, all it is just a set of tools that you can use in that graphical interface. You'll have KDE or you have GNOME. Those are the two most common. Now, there are tons out there, but KDE and GNOME are the ones you're going to see a lot more than anything else. K, Windows Manager. Think of the word K, or the letter K. What GUI do you think it's going to work under? KDE, right? KWM, or the Windows Manager, is for KDE. The Qt toolkit. It's just a software toolkit you can use with the KDE environment. GNOME desktops, however, they're completely different. GNOME is what you normally get when you're on Fedora Linux. Okay? It uses Metacity as the window manager, and it has the GNOME Toolkit Plus. GTK. You know, catching. Linux is really nice about how they word things. Now, the cool thing about it is you can configure either GNOME or KDE's window manager to do what you want it to do. Which one do you want to see in different environments? Okay. An example of that is CompIs. CompIs, it's a highly configurable, expandable window manager that utilizes the 3D versions to modern video cards so that you can use 3D graphics and performance. Okay? You can use Enlightenment. You can use KWin, LXDE. I mean, there's all sorts of different things. Sawfish. Here's what a KDE environment looks like. Now, how many of y'all have noticed when you logged in, you can go to the right side of your Fedora and you can actually pick up multiple windows? Unlike Windows, where you're just stuck with that one size, unless you have a dual monitor, then you can go to one other one. Well, the cool thing about Linux is they have multiple terminals. Since everything's based on a terminal, each one of those screens that you see are their own individual terminal, and you can just click on that and bring up that graphical terminal. Like right up here, you can have a folder in here that has, it's actually back over here, but you can click in it and bring up a completely clean screen. It's just like another environment. Just like when you were in TTY2 in the lab, and you logged in as user and went to TTY3, logged in as root, and you said, W for who was logged in, right? And again, here's the GNOME desktop environment. What is the difference? Fedora's KDE's down here, GNOME is up here. Just which way do you prefer? Okay. Run level 5 starts GNOME. Why? Run level 5 starts graphics. How many times have we talked about that? How many times did I have to hammer that one in? The DMARC file contains the desktop environments that were manually selected as the session menu. In other words, root user is not allowed to log into the system when on a GNOME desktop. Did you know that?
Why not?
Why not? Why not?
Curious.
You're curious? Me too.
Okay, so just a rule.
No. Do you want a root to log in to your local machine?
Probably not.
That's why you use the sudo command. Super user do. Okay?
Root only exists in command line.
Root only exists as a command line administrator, yes. That's why I always use sudo. I don't ever bring in my root account. I say the password and forget it. Not really. For run level 3, if you want to go from your when you boot it in with run level 3, what mode did you start in? Extended multi-user mode. So from run level 3, all you have to do at the terminal is type in start X. And then you go right to run level 5. Okay? All it does is it looks at the X initialization file and it says, what am I bringing up? GNOME or KDE? And then it brings it up. So you just got into that terminal. Alright? X Windows interfaces with video hardware. Why? Just like any other graphical thing, it has to get its CPU usage and its memory from some source. That's why older computers were such pains, because you would always use the system RAM for video until they got smart and put the RAM, separate RAM on the video card. That's why you have 256 or 512 meg video cards, right? That are $200 or $300, you know. And it attempts to automatically detect required information. If it's not there, will it boot? No. So, does it cause problems? Absolutely. There's nothing worse than having no driver on a Linux system for a video card and then trying to turn on your computer. Been there, done that. Had to remote in, add the driver, then I could go back to the computer I was at. Not fun. Configuring Windows again. What about mouse, keyboard, monitor? They all have drivers, right? By default, most mice and keyboards are plug-and-play devices. They're either PS2 if you're in the old days, or USB now, so it's hot swappable. And they're all going to be in your XF or XORG config files. And you can go in there and change it if you want to. If you want to make sure that you can run mouse as a root, do mouse-test. It'll tell you if you can or not. But you want to make sure that you run that as a root and not a typical user. System config keyboard command will show the keyboard tool in order to configure your keyboard. So if you really want to mess with people, go in here and change this to European. You know, so when you type A, it comes out as an E with the 2 dots on top of it. You know, really screw with people. System configuration display, you can make it to set to where your all they can see is one thing, or I mean, you can screw around with people quite a bit in Linux. Then you have X Video Tune utility, which is going to be your fine tuning for your video card. And here's your keyboard layout. When you go in there, like I said, if you go in and click System Config Keyboard, you can come up with this. This is where you have fun. You go in there, change it, and click Enter or OK, right? Display, it'll bring up this. You can come in here and change whatever they see. You can make it itty bitty bitty tiny, especially if it's an old person that wears trifocals. Give them a screen resolution of like 2048 by 1200. So everything's like this, and they're normally 600 by 800 or 800 by 600. You could be so mean in doing different things. And then here's your video card. Basically, all you can do is configure it and add drivers to it. Then you have the dual head display support if you want to have multiple monitors, right? You just say, what resolution? This one's 3280 by 1024, or 2280. No, 1280 by 1024. Whew, I'm glad it wasn't 3280. I don't think you could have that number anyway. But the XVID, this tells you everything that's going on with frame rates, down to the microscopic type stuff that you don't get unless you're in computer architecture. All right, your frames, your flags, your pixel clock. How many pixels am I going? Horizontal, synchro, verticals. Just tells you. You can adjust it in here to screw around with people. Don't you just love how I teach, telling you how to mess around with people? That's the best way to learn, right? We're all hackers, right? We didn't sign an oath of anything yet, did we? Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. The other day when you were talking about Linux and the different windows you can open up, you said that you cannot open up multiple DOS windows in Windows. Because I remember you saying something like that, and I said, because I was running like, especially for forensics, I was running different crack programs.
No, you can. There are multiple terminals.
Okay.
When you were saying DOS programs, I was thinking more
DOS windows. It's cause you said that, I thought you said that you couldn't run multiple because one would like start and stop the other one or something.
No, in Windows.
I had like 4 going on.
In
once.
Windows, it can get confusing.
Yeah, 'cause
Unlike
I had 4
on
that
right.
that was doing what do you call it, attack?
Brute force
Yeah,
dictionary.
brute force attack. I was using several different programs and they're all running at the same time.
Now you can use several different programs, but command just in the Windows environment,
Yeah.
you don't want to run multiple because they get configured. The memory gets all out of source, and you're going to get garbage. Unlike
Well, it
Linux,
just
which
slowed-
are each individual terminals.
Yeah, it just slowed it down a little
Yeah.
bit, not much, but I have plenty of RAM for it. And another thing too, can you go into the BIOS and change it to standard VGA mode when your video driver is corrupted in Linux, and it will still display, correct?
I haven't ever dealt with that.
Because it just
it-
loads up a
it-
generic driver
yeah,
to.
well, yeah.
Yeah, but at least you can get back on it. And
Right, but
work the driver.
but the problem is if your driver goes out while you're here, you still have to remote in to change it. You might as well put the right driver on it before you get over there anyway.
No, understood, but if if it does do it, you should be able to boot, go back into the BIOS and change it to standard VGA mode. And
If you can catch it.
yeah.
Remember, Linux boots a lot quicker than Windows. So, I
just
mean,
wonder if that was an option to do.
because the drivers for the video drivers are not loaded until the operating system, and that's where you get screwed.
Yeah.
So it's really,
Well, I'm just saying to bypass the corruption until you can actually get in there and do it.
So you have to do it like every time you fire up the computer.
Yeah.
Well, you just get a working display so you can correct the video.
or boot to a like a flash on a flash drive of a Linux operating system and go in there and change it, because you'll be able to go into your configuration files that way and do it.
I just thought there's like an easier way to things what you had to do in remote.
Well, mine was a Solaris machine, so I didn't really have much of a choice. But